What's going on, guys? Smash Adams here, and today I'm going to do an updated deck profile on Monarchs. And this is going to be for the March 2016 format. Now, considering that April is just around the corner, and with only a few minor changes here and there to the deck, I figured it wouldn't be that serious, but with the TCG possibly hitting the core pieces to the deck, not so much Ehther, but mainly the spells, which make the deck flow, I figured I would just get this out of the way in case the deck gets nerfed a lot, because this deck is topping in a lot of events. But you never know. I mean, Konami could just be on the safe side and just be like, you know what? We'll see how Angmar and the new spell card do in the deck, just to see how the new support does. But you never know these days with Konami, because you remember last year in the Dark Matter format. Well, so would have been the Dark Matter format. But until then, we'll see. The deck is great, even with the few changes I've made. It's still super quick. It has a lot more synergy compared to the last, and I love where it's going. It's phenomenal, nonetheless. So, without further ado, I'm going to show you all the deck, explain a couple of my tech choices, and here is Monarchs. Of course, we still got the triple Ehther, self-explanatory first turn. You get this with Kuraz. It's never a gimmick, especially the pluses you get off of Kuraz, especially if you set a Prime face down onto your field, just so that way you can have it just lying and waiting after you use Pantheism. You can do so and then just get a +2 and then just go through the process of possibly getting a domain off of that +2 count, and then just locking your opponent into just getting cards from their extra deck. It hurts pendulums, so that's the other reason why I like this card too, because it can open up so many options, especially if you have domain on the field. Next, we've got still triple Erebus. I was contemplating on maybe just running Caius in here too. Not Mega Caius, but regular Caius again. But I took it out and just decided to add some space for some other stuff. But aside from that, it's great. Erebus is by far one of the underrated monarchs in the deck, if not any of the versions, such as Quantum Supers and just pure monarchs alone. But I like the fact that it can stifle your opponent's field, hand, and graveyard, and just shuffle whatever unsavory cards that can just put a damper on your strategy beforehand, just straight to the deck. And with that being said, the stats in this card are pretty good next to Ehther. And considering that if you don't get Ehther in time, you can always use this first turn and then just kind of hurt your opponent's hand a little bit. So that way, if they don't have 5 cards in their hand, they can have 4, and you'd be like, yeah, that's going to hurt you a little bit. But yeah, Erebus is by far, nonetheless, one of the second highly rated monarchs to run in spades in the deck alone. Next, we've got double Thestalos. I was going to try and get a third one over the past couple of days, but I wasn't able to. But I figured the way it's going right now, especially with the flexibility that this deck gives, this card's never a gimmick next to Ehther and the other monarchs that I run. The fact that you can burn for 200 times the level of that monster that you sent from your opponent's hand, it's always essential to run a bunch of these in the deck, if not one. But considering the fact that you can use this card again if you have, if you used Mithra, for example, and you have another one lying and waiting in your hand, you can use this, tribute the other Thestalos that you used, burn again, and then activate it, and then if not just burn times 200 for that level, you also burn for an extra 1,000. Yeah, that card is pretty demonic in this deck. But nonetheless, one of the highly important monarchs to run in the main overall. Next, we've got 2 Caius. I was able to pick up a third one, but I figured I'd run it in the side, considering that I don't want to run it into too many bricks, because this deck can brick a lot, and you need a lot of flexibility in order to go off your OTKs and gain more momentum and gain more control in the game. But nonetheless, running this second turn is never a gimmick. But Caius is by far one of my favorite monarchs, if not the mega form or the original form. It's one of my favorites to run in the main deck. 2 Kuraz. I was contemplating on running a third one, but I figured the way the deck is flowing, you need enough control as you need to. And considering the fact that you don't want to draw into this, it's always good to special summon this with Ehther, so that way you can just get the draw count depending on what you pop. I mean, even if you hit your opponent's side, hey, I mean, at least you got rid of the card. Yeah, they'll get a draw, but it's better to be safe than sorry. But running Kuraz either in spades or as double never hurts either. Double Majesty's Fiend. I decided to cut out the one Vanity's Fiend for another Majesty because monster effects are what's making the game alive right now and what's helping decks win in general, if not spells and traps alone. Mainly monster effects, because nowadays, with the format being faster, monster effects are really are what makes the decks in general, any deck in particular, just completely shut down other decks that used to be a thing in the past or are still topping in a current format. So on any given day, this is good. And considering it's a floodgate card, and especially in a mirror match, you never know what can go. It can go your way, it can go your opponent's way, but just as long as you run it in the right time, it never really hurts. Especially considering the fact you can set up a lock with Vanities. Even though you shouldn't run Vanity's Fiend in the main, I mean, you can give it a try, but I just prefer double. Next, we got the Vassals, which are triple Edea. Always good to open this next to Ehther or Erebus or any of the other Monarchs. Just as long as you don't use Caius first turn, yeah, it never hurts. But Edea and Spades, yeah, it's one of the most awesome Vassals to run in the deck. Triple Eidos, good to get off that first turn tribute. And considering the fact that you can use it again after you tribute it, just banish, get your Edea back from the grave, or get your Mithra. Just do that, get more plays going, and then some. Double Mithra. Now, this card is by far one of the most underrated tech choices that I ran in the deck thus far. Considering the fact that I tested it out firsthand, I like where it's going. Yes, your opponent gets a free token, but guess what? It's free, because it special summons itself. You have to activate this first before you do anything, though, so that's the downside. But I like the fact that you can use this, and that Monarchs have their own summoning power. Even if you were to run a pure version or just a Vassal deck itself without Eidos and Edea, you can do this, just tribute off of it, and then summon a Monarch, activate the effect, put a damper on your opponent's field, then activate Mithra's effect again, then do another tribute summon, considering that its effect goes off in the graveyard, and then you can get another tribute summon off of that, and then, bam, just do more damage. This actually works pretty well with the Thestalos and Domain, especially first turn. I've done this so many times, it's not even funny with the Thestalos. So that's it for the monster lineup. Now onto the spells. The spell lineup was not so drastic, but it's still the same. We got Triple Domain, self-explanatory, sets up a lock with extra decks, like pendulums and such, or just Xyz in general, or Synchro, or Fusion, because Fluffles are topping now, considering that they do some broken shenanigans nowadays. But aside from that, it hurts extra decks. I wouldn't be shocked if they hit this to one, but until then, I'm just going to work with what I have. And considering that Angmar is out, do you know how easy it is to search this card out just by banishing a copy of this? Yeah, it's that easy. Next we got one of the most broken cards in the deck right now, if not gives enough synergy to the deck, Pantheism, or Pandeity, which they call it. I prefer Pantheism. Basically, if you open 2 of these or 1 of these and you have like enough Monarch spell cards to just drop from your hands, say primes or whatnot, you've got what you need to get more flexible hands. And usually this card says, yeah, you're less likely to brick now that you drew me. But if you get like 3 of these first hand, you can never go wrong, depending on what you have. But Pantheism is always a good card to open up with first turn. if not the second turn. Triple Tenacity, good to fetch out your Pantheisms, good to fetch out your Domain, your Stormforths, anything of that nature, Monarch-based, you can do so. You have to reveal a Tribute Summon monster with 2400 attack or 2800 attack with 1000 D in order to do it, though. So, you got to reveal a Monarch or a Majesties to do it. Next, we've got Triple Stormforth. This card is phenomenal. I mean, I hardly use it, but when it's useful, it can really help you in the long run. So use this wisely. And the bright side that it doesn't target, considering it's like a soul exchange on steroids, yeah, it's never a gimmick in this deck next to many of the other cards and monsters that help you in the long run with Monarchs in general. 1 return to recruit your Monarchs, and 1 March to make your Monarchs impervious to pretty much anything that your opponent plays via Regeki, destruction-based, targeting-based. Yeah, if I were to have Majesty's Fiend on the field, yeah, you can't really do much of a thing after that. So, unless you want to just run into some really, really drastic field plays on my side, yeah, you might as well get rid of this card, because this card is going to help me in the long run. But yeah, March of the Monarchs is by far one of the best tech choices to run. I don't run Rhoda 1-for-1 or Foolish Burial in the deck anymore, considering as good as they are, there were times I would run into dead hands with these cards. And like I mentioned earlier, I don't want to brick in this deck. But nonetheless, the spell lineup next to the monster lineup is beneficial overall. And lastly, we got the traps. It's not that heavy. We still got the triple prime, and to end the deck and the trap lineup, we got 1 escalation. I decided to cut 2 out and just make it more flexible to add the Mithras, just to make it more flexible. So that's it for the main deck lineup and for the whole deck profile overall. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Please leave a like and favorite if you did. If you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comment section down below. Hit me up. Don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, this is Smash Adams signing out.